is. I think our camera crew's having some fun. Oh, we lost John.
Actually, John's just coming down now to get it.
Is he coming down here? It's like, I can't watch that anymore. It's crazy making.
It's a rerun.
You're paying too close attention.
Hello. Oh, yeah, that works. Apologies for my tardiness. It does say something when I walk by the security desk and they'll go, "Aren't you the Bob for Bagels with Bob?" So, sorry about that. But I hope that gave you all a chance to connect. And as you know, I would typically have a connection activity. So we're going to check that off. And we're right on time. You're welcome. Yeah. Why aren't the bagels more colorful? Okay. All right. We'll handle that. So, who's here for the first time? This is the first time they've attended here. Amy? Becca? All right. Great. I'm not going to make you stand up and introduce yourself or things like that. So, yeah, I know. Isn't that disappointing to all of you that had to do that in the past? I just want to level set really quickly. So this is an opt-in invitation for everyone in DCA to join what I think you may find is a little bit of a unique forum. I've been doing this now for a couple of years. This is something that I lifted in my previous role at Kaiser Permanente. I worked for a woman named Deb, and she had Donuts with Deb. And so that, if you were wondering why it's Bagels with Bob, that's it. That was the creativity that came out of that. This is agenda-less because we're going to build the agenda in just a minute, and it's focused on an opportunity to connect with me and with other members of the team based on what it is that you all want to talk about. So call it an open-ended forum. Most of the time when I'm here on time, we would have done a little bit of a connection activity associated with things that are going on, Workforce Equity Strategic Plan, our strategic plan overall. Last month, for those of you who were able to catch it, we had a discussion around what does extending grace to someone else mean, and I got some feedback, positive, and which I felt good about. Feedback that was a good exercise that people were able to go through, and so I appreciated hearing about that. And so there's no topic that's off limits. For most of you that have been here a few times, you'll know I will answer whatever comes up. Sometimes I'll pull somebody out of the audience if there would be a better answer than one that I could put together. If the right subject expert is here in the room, I invite them to come up and share an answer related to that. Sometimes a question comes up that I feel like I want to do some follow-up on, and we'll do that, and Mary Margaret will help me make sure that we respond back around either via email or through a separate venue or something along those lines. So that's what those of you who are here for the first time, that's what you should experience. And with that, why don't we see what it is that you all would like to hear about today? Patrick.
Mayonnaise or Miracle Whip?
Okay. Mayonnaise or Miracle Whip. Okay. That's great. Mayonnaise or Miracle Whip. Good. Okay. Real tough one. Okay. What else could I share with you? Rumor control, questions that you have? Brad?
Update on the customer engagement project?
Say a little bit more about that customer engagement project. Customer experience, okay. The customer experience project. Okay. Yeah, I can provide an update on that. Yeah, Hagen?
Any updates on building disposition or what against the building or insurance, certainly for the all one building?
Okay. Building dispositions? Okay, yeah, I can provide an update on that. I'm gonna scan the crowd real quick.
This one's a little personal, so you can avoid this one.
Oh, I thought you were volunteering to do the building update. Okay, all right.
There are a couple of interim positions for key positions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, interim positions. Yeah, in DCA or beyond DCA?
Just DCA.
Okay, just DCA, because there's interim positions outside of DCA as well, right? Yeah.
Well, if you have something to share about.
Okay.
Some of us don't get to get the global county legal and stuff.
Well, that's what this forum is for. Yeah. Yeah, the questions or the things that you're curious about don't have to just be DCA. It could be, you know, something that you think you're the only one that has this question. You should ask that, because I bet there's somebody else that might also have that question. And it could be as broad as something socially or an interest that you have, like mayonnaise or Miracle Whip. Or for me, whether the Seahawks will have a running game. That's been kind of a running thing through this forum. Stan?
This one's going to keep me awake at night. How do you pronounce your dog's name?
Okay. So Stan has been kept awake. Yeah, based on my dog's name. Okay. Stan, we may need to get you some help. We'll figure that out. Anything else? And that's always that operative. I'm not saying that this is, the end of the list. Anything come in from online other than colorful bagels?
That was me.
Oh, it was? Okay.
It's more of an existential question.
All right. Okay. Okay, so I'll be make my way through these then. Let's get the easiest one out of the way first. So my dog's name. So we have a 12-year-old Labradoodle whose name is Jakiva. For those of you who know Jakiva Chocolates, it's a Portland chocolate company. And she was a chocolate lab when we got her. She was about this big. She's about 50 pounds now. And we decided we wanted an overlap dog or an overlap relationship. So we went to the Humane Society. This little, mostly terrier, jumped up on kids' laps, and they all fell in love with him. And so we took him home that night. So we've had him about 6 weeks now. So the verbalization of his name is Hasi. So that's spelled H-A-C-E-E, Hasi. And the story that I can tell with that is my dad traveled a lot for his job. And his name is Hubertus Cornelis. His name that he goes by that people know him is Bert. But Hubertus Cornelis, very Dutch name. My name is Robertus Cornelis. That's my given name. And my dad traveled a lot, and I have a brother and 2 sisters. I'm the oldest. The youngest is 2 years younger. There's a set of twins in the middle. 4 kids in 3 years. So after we got old enough and we were all doing our own things and my dad was traveling, my mom started to get lonely at home. So she got a dog, and she named him Hasi, but it was written H and C. So that way when she was calling the dog, she would say, come here, Hasi. And it felt like she was making a connection to my dad because he was gone so much. So that's the genesis of the name. For those of you who know, my wife is Heather. Heather's middle name is Christy. So I don't want you to make any other connection than the irony that my dad's initials were HC and my wife's initials are HC, and now we have a dog whose Dutch pronunciation of the letters H and C is Hasi. So that's where it comes from. All right? And give me a great opportunity to tell this great story, right? Okay. Mayonnaise or Miracle Whip. I'm Dutch. I was born in the Netherlands. I don't know what Miracle Whip is. So mayonnaise is what I grew up on. I grew up on mayonnaise and banana sandwiches. Sliced bananas, 2 pieces of only white bread, and 2 layers of mayonnaise. And I grew up on, in the Netherlands, mayonnaise is the side that you get with French fries. And so I grew up with French fries with mayonnaise. I get very weird looks, especially over here at Burger King. I like to go to Burger King every so often, and I'll order a burger and some fries, and I'll say, can I have a packet of mayonnaise? And they're like, for what? I said, for my fries. Okay. So, yeah, Hagen.
Does the ripeness of the banana matter?
Oh yeah, it's got to be. It's firm, new bananas, just sliced into 1/4-inch slices, dotted on the sandwich. And being not in a really large family, there's only 4 kids, but we were all more or less the same age growing up, right? Doing a loaf of bread and a bunch of bananas and a half a jar of mayonnaise was a pretty cheap set of meals to eat. So, yeah, Johnny.
If you were really Dutch, you would have had hagelslag.
Yes, hagelslag. Yep, hagelslag. Oh, that's so good. I made hagelslag sandwiches. It is sugar, crystallized sugar, and that it's colorful. it would be great on your colorful bagels. So it's another great story. I decided to get some hagelslag from the store. There's a store in Beaverton, a Dutch store. Went over, bought a box of that, brought it home, made lunch for the kids. Heather saw what I was doing, and she is like, what the hell? You're pouring sugar on bread for the kids. And that one doesn't go with mayonnaise, it goes with butter. So bread, butter, sugar. Now, what kid isn't going to like that, right? So, last story about Heather. My daughter's in the Royal Blues at Grant High School, and they're doing a trip to Europe this summer. My wife is going to chaperone them, so they're doing 10 days in Prague and Vienna and Berlin, singing in cathedrals and all of those sorts of things. And then they're going to spend another 2.5 weeks there as a vacation. And they're going from Berlin, they're going to go to Amsterdam and Paris and London. But while they're in Amsterdam, my wife says, I'm purposefully going to the airport to go to the vending machines that are in the airport, and I'm going to buy a croquette, which if you haven't had these, they're meat croquettes. It's a meat paste that's wrapped in kind of a panko bread and then deep fried. And she's doing it just to spite me because you cannot get those in the United States. She said, why would you want them out of a vending machine in Amsterdam? I said, I was 4 years old, and that is my memory of being in the Netherlands, is going to the train station or the airport and getting a croquette out of a vending machine. Okay, enough stories. The building disposition effort. So working with facilities, and I think we can send out some information on this because we had a facility asset FASP, right? And a building disposition plan. You want to come up and tell the rest of the story?
I'm not sure I can.
Okay.
I'm not sure how far you're taking.
Yeah, so there was a set of buildings that were identified, the first tier of buildings that we were going to deal with from the county's perspective. 2 of them are the McCoy building and the courthouse, the current courthouse. And so the plan to dispose of them was to build these 2 new facilities and then sell the existing facilities. And that's how we address the condition. Sorry, step back half a step. Every building has had some version of a condition assessment that's been done. And so those buildings are in, I think, 3 tiers, A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3. And so the plan was we needed to start dealing with those buildings whose condition assessment might exceed an acceptable level of operating costs. Like it costs a lot to keep McCoy running and to keep the courthouse running and those sorts of things. There were a lot of other factors, seismic liability, et cetera. And so central probation, what we called central probation, which is over here, over by elections, was on that list. So the point is that we have a plan around our buildings related to condition assessment work. And then from that, we needed to lift up which are the first ones that we're going to address. And we've started to make our way through that. The sheriff's office, the old sheriff's office, the Hanson building, was in that list. So currently, the Hanson building is empty and it's fenced. And there is interest in the Hanson building. But we have a lot of things going on, and so there's no active effort around Hanson currently. And then a few months ago, because we're now doing the campus, the DCJ East campus work, in order to accommodate the remodel work for the 2 buildings that we're doing on the DCJ East campus, we have put modulars in the parking lot at Hanson so that the staff at DCJ East can go, it's about a mile or mile and a half, they can move out of their building into those modulars so that we can do the remodel work. And then either they'll move back in and the other group will move, or maybe the other group will move to their new building and we'll do the other building. Anyway, it's kind of a 3-way dance with those 3 facilities. It's about a year's worth of work that we're planning, and then those modulars would go away and Hanson would go back to the state that it was in, which is fenced and essentially a decommissioned building. And then there's interest from East County sides that's been expressed around the building, and we're still entertaining interest on that, but there's no firm committed plans associated with that facility. And then since we've done two of the larger efforts with McCoy and the courthouse, one of the things that we're going to do this summer is refresh what the plan is. So what now rises to the top of the list, propose those as some options for the chair's office to choose from based on what the plans are, informed by our budget situation, informed by the interest that people may have in disposition of these properties, and from that, we'll develop the next list of, say 5 to 8 buildings that we're going to do something with. So that's kind of the life cycle of building disposition work. Does that hit it? Any questions on that, Tony?
I just want a separate issue, but wondering what the update is on the downtown building that was required for shelter.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about what is on the market as the Bouchon building, right? It's at 333 Southwest Park. The owner of that building approached the county last fall asking our interest in that. Mental Health and Addiction Services has long wanted a downtown mental health resource center. And so this long-term need that we've been, working and thinking about and so forth matched up with the availability of this location. So we spent the last 6 months doing due diligence and evaluating that, and we have arrived at a decision that as of Monday, we will own that building because it closes on Monday. Next door to that is a parking lot, surface parking lot, and we're also in the process of acquiring that parking lot. So what we'll end up with is 2 parcels of land that are connected to each other that, given that everything finishes closing out, and I don't see any risk with either of these, they're not finished yet, but they're in the last stages, we'll own these 2 parcels downtown, and then we're gonna consider, so what are we gonna do with that? Do we remodel the building as is, or do we do, there are other options that would be available. The end outcome is to build a mental health resource center. And Neil Rotman from Mental Health and Addiction Services and Mark Jolin from the Joint Office for Homeless Services are building out the program that they would like to have. And some of that would be a drop-off center, some of that could be transitional housing assistance. It's not going to be a treatment facility. It's not going to treat juveniles. There's some other land use or code-related things that prevent us from doing anything down there. But for a long time, the county has desired to have a downtown location. And so we're kind of making our way toward that outcome. Okay. Great. Then customer experience project. So I think we're still talking about what does that customer experience project, what could it look like? And what would that mean for us here at the county? There are several models of communities and jurisdictions that have made a lot of progress and a lot of work around this. I've shared some of them in the past, but San Jose County, Santa Clara, Maricopa County, City of Boston, even some work that the City of Portland that they've shared with us. Those of you who were here when Josh Mitchell was here, he's over there helping consult with them on rebuilding their website to be much more service-oriented website than an information website. So it will provide intake, it will help things get done. It'll be a complement to the PDX Reporter app. So if you don't have that app, if you live in the city, that's how you can report graffiti and potholes, and there's a few other choices that are in that. And so that type of digital experience for people getting services from a local jurisdiction like ours is what we're talking about. So I think right now my focus and our focus has been on building out some of that infrastructure that we need for that. So a couple of you are involved in the SCOPE project. Right? The intent of SCOPE is to build the capability to pull data out of disparate systems and match that up and create the point of view of the data that we have about someone. It stops short of creating what in data terms you might say the golden record, like one record with everything that we know about you, that our scope is, the scope of scope, is to pull all the information that we have about who we think you are and displaying that for people that know what that data says or means. And so putting that infrastructure in place, data extraction capabilities, data management, data governance, data definitions. I could have Jane talk about a bunch of this. That's one of the foundational components of being able to do digital service provision. The integration work that we've done with Mulco Align through Workday. So building and understanding how to build APIs, and it might not go so far as services, but that's the concept, right? That we can move data around between transaction systems in near real time. Those foundational elements of what I believe that we've been focused on, or what I've influenced over the past couple of years, because we need to be able to do that before we promise anybody that we could build a front end to an intake process and then process it through our transaction systems. One of the base premise components that I have is we can't afford to replace all of our transaction systems. So our transaction system does what it does, pick one. What we can focus on is how can we create an easier way to get in and out of those systems in a way that meets our customers' needs. So when people want to do 3 transactions, instead of having to go into 3 different systems, what if they could do that transaction on the front end and we handle it all under the hood, kind of behind the scenes? So think about when you shop on Amazon, do you have a concept that you're actually buying from the supplier that Amazon has facilitated the capability to do the fulfillment of whatever good? Right? You're Amazon's customer, and Amazon gets you really sticky, and they want you to come to their site, and they make it seamless for you to get anything, almost anything. Still can't buy organs or things like that. But for most consumer goods, you just need to go to Amazon, right? And so thinking in terms of what is it that the public wants from us, that's the next step that we're going to take. And we're going to start to work on that engagement with our business partners, with the departments, because we do, through some analysis that we did for the strategic capital plan, there's about 80 things that we do a lot of, almost on a day-to-day basis. And so what if we analyze those 80 things and begin to think about, do any of these have a synergy between them? Is it something that someone would do this and this and this, and use that as a starting point to consider having a different experience with accessing and getting our services? And so I think that's the transition we'll make this year, is to begin to talk about what that could be. And the great thing about it is, because we haven't already done it, there's a lot of examples to follow. And there's even more examples of how not to do it. Failed projects, promises that were made that couldn't be fulfilled, millions of dollars spent on something that never actually worked out, or millions of dollars spent on something that the public actually turned out that they really didn't want. So how do we engage with our communities about what could better look like in terms of their interaction with the county? And so I think that's the transition we'll make this year, because I think we have the beginnings of those foundational elements, moving data around our infrastructure. Identity is going to be a big piece of this, right? Amazon only works. I mean, I know you can shop on Amazon as a guest, but Amazon is a much richer experience if you log in. And so thinking about those concepts, that's what we're working on. And so our progress so far, Brad, you asked this, right? Our progress so far has been focused on these infrastructure aspects and thinking about what that future could look like. And that transition that I'd like to see us make this year is to really start to flesh out what are the first couple of use cases that we could do around that. Did I get it for you? Yeah.
I love this concept, and it seems very IT-centric, but how flushed out is it among all the other departments, so as they have that expectation of, yes, your service will be partnered with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Other department.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because who's driving
Yeah, it needs to be driven by the business teams and by the departments, and ultimately it really needs to be driven by what the public wants from us, right? My hypothesis is they want something. This is a very, not Tim Cook, but Steve Jobs kind of a mode. I'm not sure the public can vocalize what they really want, but they will love it when they see it, right? That's kind of that Apple mantra that has driven Apple's resurgence over the last 20 years. So I believe we have to be able to do something. And so we've made a couple of bets. One is the scope project. We have to be able to combine disparate sets of data. And so let's do that. And Megan and Jane and the others that are involved in that have 4 pilot use cases being done by case managers, right? So this isn't IT saying, hey, look how cool this is. This is what would make your life better on a day-to-day basis. And the response is, well, if I had this data and this data and this data, which might come from 3 different systems, and I had it all on one screen, it would save me having to log into 3 different systems. It would save me having to make a phone call. And so the IT side of things is to prove that we're capable of doing it. And I want to do just enough of that so that when they do ask for something, that we can use that tooling or that knowledge or the data management aspects of things so that we can actually get the first couple of things done without having to start from scratch at that point. So I'll never say this will be an IT-led effort, but now we need to transition into what could this look like from the department's perspective. And when that caseworker in, not addiction medicine, but developmental disabilities, or works with, say, a parole officer out of DCJ, and they're both able to see their client and see the information that they have access to. It's in our systems, but it's hard for them to get to that. And now that parole officer can have a better engagement with that parolee because they also know other things about them. That's when I think the lights will start going off for the departments. And then it'll be a natural next step to say, how do we engage with the public and what could that look like? Did that hit it for you? Yeah, so that's kind of where we are. This is a long-term thing for me, but we need to make, every quarter or so, we need to take a positive step forward in building out these capabilities. And my biggest fear is that we do a couple of things that go really, really well, and then we get overwhelmed with, oh, well, let's redo the entire experience for everything. Slow down, right? We got to prioritize. We have limited resources. We have a bunch of stuff that's already on the plate, the natural aspect of doing this work. But I think the work we could be doing in 2 to 3 years will include that. And a lot of that will be a lot different than what we've done in the past. Other questions on customer experience? Okay. Then the interim positions, I think, is the last thing that I wrote down. So it's such a timely topic. I was talking about this over the past couple of days. So I'm currently the interim director of DCA and CIO. And because I stepped up into the role, and I was the deputy CIO, I asked Tracy Massey to step into the interim deputy CIO role. And because she stepped up into that role, she needed to have somebody backfill her role. So Vicki Scotty is the interim program management office leader for IT. On the facility side, because the departure of the facility division director, Henry, we asked Naomi to step into the interim role as the interim division director for facilities. There's currently, in addition, Erica Pruitt is the interim director for DCJ. And until last Friday, the interim director of mental health and addiction medicine was Ebony Clark. But through the finalization of some work that was happening around the Unity Center and so forth, Ebony was named as the permanent director for mental health and addiction medicine. The county finds itself at a place where there are a bunch of interim. I don't want to misquote a number, but I'll say it's more than a handful. It may be a dozen or so. of these leaders that are in interim roles. And so for us in DCA, I work with Marisa, and what Marisa has asked me to do is, be the interim director of DCA and help facilitate and ensure that DCA is doing what it needs to do, that it's fulfilling the needs that the departments have for the work that we do. And when there are decisions that need to be made, involve the team, so the leadership teams, the DCA senior team, the other teams that are involved, involve the teams in coming forward with, this is what we think we should do. And where necessary, get Marisa involved or get the chair's office involved around those decisions. So I took that to mean, don't use the interim tag as a reason to not do great work. The interim tag is something that is, it's a process step. I've taken it as an on-the-job interview opportunity. That's kind of how I show up on a day-to-day basis. I'm the interim leader, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to make decisions or facilitate the dialogue that's necessary in order to keep our work going. That's another way that an interim could operate. Usually, those folks operate that way because they know something's imminently going to happen in terms of, say, a recruiting. Right? So you're the interim, and I need you to just do this for 4 months because this is what we're going to do next. So with my role, what I was asked to do is be the interim director of DCA and do the work that DCA needs to get done. And there was no time frame that was bound by that. So I thought, well, maybe I'll be the interim for a year or 2 years or 3 years. It would be a disservice if I didn't act like the permanent director. And so that's the way that I've shown up. And then because that's the way that I've been working and modeling the work that I've been doing, I've asked the same thing from Tracy and from Naomi, and I know that Tracy has asked that from Vicki. And so we're operating at the full expectation of the role that we're supposed to play. And then if the county decides that it wants to do some process, a recruiting effort, or things along those lines, then it'll be as an outcome of the dialogue that we're all having. So I would like the permanent job, and I treat this as an on-the-job interview. So the way to get the permanent job is to do great work. And so that's how I've showed up every day since last July. And that's what I expect from Tracy and Naomi, and then that's what Tracy expects from Vicki, and that's what I expect from all of us, is let's go do great work. How does that sound, Jeff?
Honest truth?
Yeah?
So this gets a little bit more just facility-centric, but from the IT perspective, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a room, everything just trickles down in a room, I get it. From the facilities perspective, I'm not sure why that one is stalled.
Yeah, I would say not.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
You're not, no.
Away, that's fine.
No, I think this is the kind of dialogue that I want to have in our organization. It's one of transparency and truth and what's going on. So particular to facilities, I'll take you back to last fall when we had a dialogue of the senior team, and we said, in order to provide stability and a sense of surety about the immediate term, Naomi was going to serve as the interim director until sometime next summer. The first day of spring was a couple of weeks ago, right? And so my sense is Naomi's doing a great job, right? The results show that. McCoy's on time. We've done a lot of crisis management and facilities, for those of you who aren't intimate with all the work that is happening on the facility side of things. And next summer is coming. And so the reason I say that it's timely is I think because we agreed that it would be next summer, I think it's time to have the dialogue to say, okay, it's next summer. So what has your experience been? What does success look like? Where are we going as a facilities organization in the next 3 to 5 years? Because that's the leader that we should be looking for. And I want to do that with the people that are involved in that work. I do not have enough intelligence and understanding to say, oh, well, this is the person that we need to go hire. that should be informed by all of us working together on that. And so those are the next steps specific to facilities. So I'm going to just flip it around to say it's not stuck, it's getting ready to do what we agreed to do last fall. Fair? Yeah, okay. Great. Anything else for today then? Okay, so I have one last challenge for you. If you look around this room and you see somebody you don't know, would you just mind going up and introducing yourself as you leave? Thank you.